Many women live life on autopilot, not by conscious design. They wake up to alarms, obligations, expectations, but not to joy, not to meaning, not to truth. Somewhere between to-do lists and societal roles, they lose the feeling of being fully alive. They scroll through social media, absorbing other people's dreams, bodies, lifestyles, unknowingly disconnecting from their own essence. And deep within, they feel it, a quiet dissatisfaction, a longing. Something's missing, even when everything seems to be there. But what if this moment, right now, is your invitation to return to yourself? You don't need to escape your life. You need to return, with new eyes, with an open heart, with a new decision, to no longer settle for a life that feels almost right. Almost is the enemy of your greatness. You're not here to be almost happy. You're here to live deeply fulfilled, to wake up each morning feeling guided, grounded, and inwardly radiant. And that starts by remembering your true self, beyond titles, expectations, and masks, beyond who you were taught to be. Beneath it all lies your raw, real, untamed essence. You're not here to please. You're here to embody, to take up space with your voice, your values, your vision, to stay loyal to your truth, even if your voice shakes, to choose yourself, even if no one applauds. Growth begins where you stop adapting and start revealing, not from ego, but from essence, not to prove, but to be, because your essence is power, quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to shout, yet cannot be ignored. Feminine self-empowerment, identity shift. You were never meant to shrink so others feel comfortable. You were never meant to silence your truth, to keep the peace. You were never meant to dim your light, so others could shine brighter. You were made to own your energy, to speak clearly, to lead gently, to be bravely yourself every single day. Yes, there will be days filled with doubt, fatigue, resistance. But the woman you're becoming, she's worth it. She's not perfect, but she is powerful. She doesn't say I'm ready because she's fearless, but because she acts despite fear. She's not without fear, but she is willing to leave the old behind, willing to show her heart, willing to no longer wait. She doesn't wait anymore. She creates, with tears in her eyes, with trembling knees, but she moves forward, and every woman who moves forward becomes a path for others. Back to you. Rituals of self-encounter. Transformation doesn't begin with a New Year's resolution or an online course. It often begins in silence, in moments where you pause and say, enough. In the smallest rituals lies the greatest magic. Preparing tea with mindfulness, walking barefoot and feeling, I'm here, writing in your journal. What do I really feel today? Lighting a candle and promising yourself, I will listen. These simple acts open sacred space. Space where you can hear yourself again. Space where you can rewrite your truth. You don't need a perfect plan. You need daily practice. And you need patience with yourself, with the process, with your cycles. Because healing is not linear. It is cyclical. And you have permission to begin again as often as needed. What feels heavy today can be your strength tomorrow. What hurts today may guide you tomorrow. Sometimes magic begins with a no to self-betrayal, toxic adaptation, inner emptiness. That no is your first yes to yourself. Shadow work, healing through confrontation. True transformation begins where you stop hiding from yourself, where you shine light on your shadows. The fear of not being enough, the pain of old wounds, the rage you've long suppressed. These are not enemies. They're your untapped power. Behind every shadow lies a strength waiting to be seen and freed. Stop judging yourself. Start understanding. Stop forcing. Start holding. Stop fixing. Start loving, even imperfect parts. You don't have to be healed first to feel worthy. You are worthy right now, in your process, in your imperfection, in your humanity. And the more compassion you learn to hold for yourself, the freer you become. Because a woman who can feel it all can transform it all. It's not weakness when you fall apart. It's strength when you rise again, more aware, more grounded, more tender. Embodiment, Living your new reality, knowledge alone changes nothing. It is lived knowledge that creates worlds. You can read thousands of books, watch hundreds of videos, but if you don't act, it remains theory. So now it's about embodiment, about actions that nourish your new identity. Speak what you've long silenced. Wear clothes that feel like your future. Say yes to what stretches you. Say no to what shrinks you. Embrace your reflection with compassion, not critique. Go to places that inspire you, even if you feel small. Dance barefoot to your favorite song and feel, I'm alive. Nourish your body like the temple it is. You don't have to be perfect to begin, but you have to begin to grow. Because every choice you make today from your inner greatness builds the woman you'll be tomorrow. You're no longer the one who waits. You're the one who creates. There's something no one told you about manifestation, and it's what's holding you back, even when you're doing everything right. Visualizations, affirmations, meditations, the more you try, the more things seem to slip away. The truth is uncomfortable, but liberating. The biggest mistake isn't in what you want, it's in how you want it. And this mistake, repeated daily without realizing it, is what keeps everything you desire farther away. For years, I've seen people practice visualizations and affirmations like magical mantras. I've seen many try hard, believing that wanting something intensely is enough to make it happen. But the most common mistake isn't the desire. It's in how the desire is framed. Every time someone says, I'm going to get it, they're unknowingly declaring that they don't have it yet. There's something no one told you about manifestation, and it's what's holding you back, even when you're doing everything right. Visualizations, affirmations, meditations. The more you try, the more things seem to slip away. The truth is uncomfortable, but liberating. The biggest mistake isn't in what you want, it's in how you want it. And this mistake, repeated daily without realizing it, is what keeps everything you desire farther away. For years, I've seen people practice visualizations and affirmations like magical mantras. I've seen many try hard, believing that wanting something intensely is enough to make it happen. But the most common mistake isn't the desire. It's in how the desire is framed. Every time someone says, I'm going to get it, they're unknowingly declaring that they don't have it yet. And the quantum field responds precisely to the vibration of that absence. I fell into that trap myself at the beginning of my journey. I thought thinking about the future, imagining what was coming, was enough to create new realities. But I realized that by placing everything in the future, I was disconnecting from the only time that truly exists, the now. The brain, the body, and the energy you emit can only operate in this moment. Everything that vibrates in the future remains distant, eternally out of reach. When I understood that the universe doesn't respond to hope but to certainty, everything changed. I came to realize it's not about wanting something. It's about becoming it. It's useless to say, one day I'll be prosperous, if my body is vibrating lack. It's like chasing your own shadow, always one step behind, always searching without integration. Manifestation requires immediate embodiment. To feel as real what the mind still tries to deny. I had to break the addiction to projecting desires. This required mental discipline, because the ego loves to throw everything into the future. It survives on the idea that something is still missing. But the quantum field doesn't recognize the language of I will have. It only responds to I have, to I am, and this tiny linguistic shift represents a massive vibrational change. That's when everything in my life started to shift. Every time I reinforced the truth of now within myself, my body aligned with the experience. It was as if I were already living what I had previously only longed for. And the more I embodied that truth in the present, the more the universe conspired to materialize it in the physical plane. This led me to an even deeper discovery about time, the field, and the energetic language of the now. It was when I realized that the universe doesn't operate in the linear time we were taught, that everything within me began to reorganize. The quantum field doesn't understand promises, plans, or expectations. It responds to what vibrates now, in this precise moment, at the level of emotion, conviction, identity. Saying, I will do it, is like flipping a switch and expecting the light to turn on later. It simply doesn't work. Creation happens the moment your frequency aligns with the certainty of being. For many years, I lived between what I wanted and what I experienced, without understanding why manifestations felt so distant, until I realized that each time I said, "One day I will heal," I was reinforcing illness. It was like placing desire on a pedestal and kneeling before it, as if it were something outside of me. The key turned when I began affirming, "I am healed," even though my body still showed symptoms. The now is the only doorway to real transformation. When the body feels the future as if it's the present, it begins to produce the chemicals of that experience before it happens. The conscious mind may doubt, but once the body is convinced, it becomes a stage where the miracle unfolds. That's when I stopped waiting to feel good. I chose to feel good now, without needing a reason, and that was one of the most revolutionary decisions I've ever made. I started acting like someone who had already achieved everything I wanted, not out of delusion, but from vibrational choice. If I wanted abundance, I behaved generously. If I wanted love, I cultivated presence and compassion, not like an emotional beggar, but as a conscious creator who knows the field responds not to intention, but to coherence. And that coherence must be rooted in the now. I understood that reality doesn't bend to waiting. It responds to the exact frequency being emitted in that moment. Everything started to accelerate when I abandoned psychological time and stepped into the time of creation. And it was then that I dove into an even deeper territory, where the subconscious reveals itself as largely responsible for maintaining or breaking limiting cycles. I discovered it's not enough to consciously want something if the subconscious is programmed for the opposite. The subconscious mind is like a recorder running in the background, controlling almost 95% of our actions and reactions. So it didn't matter how many times I said I wanted to change my life. Deep down, there were still beliefs of lack, fear, or unworthiness. And the most curious thing is that the subconscious doesn't distinguish between real and imagined. It believes in what is repeated with emotional intensity. I began to understand that every repetition, accompanied by strong emotion, is a form of reprogramming. So I started using statements in the present tense, as if they were absolute truths. But saying it wasn't enough. I had to feel it, embody it, live it internally. Not just say, "I am prosperous," but feel my body react to that phrase as if it were truly overflowing with abundance. This quiet conviction started creating a new energetic signature. Slowly, I began erasing old patterns, ones I didn't even know existed but were guiding my life like invisible footprints. Inherited patterns, words I heard as a child, experiences that left deep marks. Everything changed when I consciously rewrote the narrative inside me. I did this during meditations, walks, and before going to sleep. Every moment became an invitation to install new programming in the system. And the more coherent I became between what I thought, felt, and did, the more my subconscious accepted that new code as truth. Resistance diminished, doubt evaporated, and the body began to function with a different software. It wasn't magic. It was applied neuroscience. Over time, I began noticing subtle yet powerful changes. Opportunities that appeared from nowhere. Relationships that transformed. Symptoms that disappeared. That's when I realized, if I was capable of creating a new vibrational identity with the right repetition, then I could completely reshape my reality. And that idea led me to try something even bolder. A simple yet powerful example became the key to my own transformation. I remember the first time I said with conviction, "I am rich," not as a wish, but as a reality already pulsing inside me. Something changed immediately. It was like my brain froze for a few seconds, tried to process why I was stating something that the physical world had not yet shown. But that disruption, that internal short circuit, was exactly what I needed to reconfigure my state of being. The initial discomfort was a sign that the reprogramming was happening in real time. In that moment, I realized that every time I had said, "I will be rich," my mind relaxed. It didn't need to change anything, because the desire was always projected into the future. But when I declared, "I am rich," my entire physiology had to align with that new vibration. It was like demanding an immediate upgrade from every cell in my body. And although my bank statement said otherwise, what started to manifest was a new way of perceiving, and soon after, a new reality. I began to notice the impact it had on my behavior. I no longer accepted living in scarcity or reinforcing stories of lack. My thoughts became more selective, my words more intentional. I stopped acting like someone who was waiting and started behaving like someone who had already made it. Even my simplest decisions were affected. How I dressed, how I positioned myself in conversations, even how I breathed. Everything in me began to express wealth, even before it materialized. And the same applied to my health. When I started saying, "My body is strong and balanced," I noticed subtle shifts in my energy levels. And I didn't just say it mechanically. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and felt my entire system respond. Gradually, the pain faded, the fatigue lifted, and my body began to behave the way I visualized it. Repetition infused with emotion became a sacred ritual that steered my biology in a new direction. This example showed me that words, when paired with presence, are creative tools. And when I understood this, I want to take the practice even further, to transform into a true ritual where mind, body, and spirit fuse into a single frequency of manifestation. There came a point when affirmations alone were no longer enough. I felt I needed something deeper, something that involved not just my mind, but also my body and energetic field. That's when I developed a ritual, a sacred moment of connection with the creative source in an integrated way. Nothing fancy or religious, just a space of silence, breath, and full intention. Each time I entered that state, I felt an indescribable presence, as if something within me expanded beyond time. I begin this ritual with breath. I bring my attention to the center of my chest and inhale deeply, feeling the air fill not only my lungs but the entire field surrounding me. Breath anchors me in the present, and only from this point of absolute presence does any declaration have true power. Then, I elevate my emotional state with inner images that evoke gratitude, love, and wholeness. Only in this elevated state, when the body believes, do I release the words, "I am divine creation. Everything is already mine." Reality bows to my state of being. I don't say these phrases in a hurry. Every word carries energy, and I let them resonate through my body like activation codes. Sometimes I do this in front of a mirror, other times in complete silence with my eyes closed. The key is intention, feeling it as truth, even if the outside world says otherwise. And when this internal truth is established, the external world has no choice but to reorganize. This ritual became a habit, a moment requiring nothing but presence and surrender. No asking, no pleading, just affirming who I am in essence. And each time I finish, I feel a wave of alignment sweep through my field, as if every particle of me knows exactly where it should be. Body, mind, emotions, everything clicks into place like perfect gears in a divine machine. It was through living this ritual, day by day, that I understood the true power of conviction, not through brute force or mental insistence, but through a silent, unshakable certainty. Because when this conviction awakens, the entire universe begins responding almost immediately. Conviction is the frequency that moves the invisible. I'm not talking about believing out of convenience or repeating words by habit. I mean that deep certainty that doesn't need external proof to exist. When I began to maintain this internal state of, "This is already mine," everything around me began to change, not because I asked, but because I became the reality I wanted to manifest. I realized the universe doesn't respond to fragile desires. It reacts to the vibration of someone who already feels whole, complete, and resolved. So I stopped waiting for signs and started being the sign. I became the point of emission, the origin of the reality I once searched for outside myself. Conviction freed me from anxiety, because when something is already mine, there's no room for doubt, no more urgency, only space for presence. And when I entered that state, I began noticing a subtle phenomenon. Opportunities arrived before I even thought of them. Conversations flowed as if already programmed. Events aligned with almost surgical precision. It felt as if the field was saying, "Now you know, now you understand." And all of it happened effortlessly. Simply the natural consequence of someone living in total coherence with who they claim to be. I stopped asking for change. I started declaring it, not with arrogance, but with powerful humility born from knowing who I am. And when you live in that certainty, your entire body vibrates at a different rhythm, Thoughts become clearer. Emotions stabilize. The heart feels at peace. Conviction creates a field around the body, a magnetic field that attracts without force everything resonant with it. And it was by living this daily, intensely, that I came to a greater realization. To maintain that frequency, discipline is needed. A single moment of clarity wasn't enough. I needed to sustain the energy of conviction until it became my natural state of being. I realized that understanding manifestation intellectually isn't enough. It must be integrated into your body, your habits, your daily life. So I created a 21-day cycle where I committed my attention, intention, and energy to installing a new identity. 3 times a day, without fail, I practiced my affirmations. Not like someone repeating an empty mantra, but as someone mastering reality with the vibration of the now. It's a commitment to myself, to my new version. During those 21 days, I journaled everything that began to shift around me. Small synchronicities, mood changes, sudden insights, all were noticed, not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to consolidate the feeling I was creating. Writing anchored that new energy field. It's like imprinting a vibration that started in the invisible and now seeks passage into the physical world. This process taught me emotional discipline. Even on days when the mind tried to sabotage me or the body wanted to revert, I persisted because I knew habit is the vehicle of transformation. Like training a long and used muscle, it might hurt at first. It might feel strange, but soon it becomes part of who you are. And over time, effort gives way to flow, as if living in that new state of being was the most natural thing. I stopped expecting change from the outside. I became the change within, and the world responded. These 21 days aren't just about repetition. They're about vibrational coherence, about holding focus even when the ego cries out for proof. I learned to silence that voice. I replaced fear with presence, doubt with certainty. And with each completed cycle, trust in the process deepened. In that constancy, I came to an even greater understanding. I'm no longer a student of manifestation. I am the creator, the master of my own reality. This realization led me to recognize, without a doubt, the divine nature of who I truly am. There came a moment when I stopped searching, not because I gave up, but because I understood that everything I had been seeking outside was already within. I didn't need to become a creator. I had always been one. The only difference now was that I remembered. The veil of doubt, separation, and scarcity had fallen. I was no longer an apprentice of manifestation. I was the manifestation itself in motion. There is no longer this idea that something is far away. Everything I desire, everything I vibrate, already exists at some frequency. And when I accept this as my identity, the physical world begins to respond in an inevitable way. I stopped being a passive observer of reality. I became its architect. And from that place, everything takes on new meaning. Challenges become invitations. Time becomes an ally. The now becomes a creative portal. Today, when I open my eyes in the morning, I don't wonder how to attract what I want. I choose to be it. And that decision reorganizes my energy, my actions, my thoughts. It's a dance between the invisible and the visible. In that dance, I learned that creation doesn't happen through effort, but through coherence. When body, mind, and emotion vibrate in unison, reality takes shape silently, without noise. Being a creator is an act of responsibility, but also of freedom. I stopped blaming the world, circumstances, the past. Nothing else defines who I am. The vibration I emit is the magnet that attracts what I receive. And if something doesn't align with my purpose, I don't resist. I simply reposition. Because I know that everything is a reflection of who I am, not of what I do. This awareness keeps me awake. And even when the old self tries to return, there is no room for it. Because now I recognize my power, my creative nature, and the right I have to live everything that resonates with my essence. Now that truth has been revealed, one inevitable question remains. Will you keep projecting your desires into tomorrow? Or will you start living as if everything is already yours? Now? Because change doesn't depend on the world. It depends on what you're vibrating in this exact moment. And if that vibration changes, everything changes with it. Comment below. I declare it is already mine. If you're ready to experience this transformation, And of course, if this video moved you, if it made you see life in a new way, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's much more wisdom on the way, and you won't want to miss it.